Even so, I had managed to find over 20 Portlanders so far who A, didn't make me start a fire using 2 rocks to test my camping mettle, B, didn't have gluten allergies, and C, didn't already know me. Portland is a small town, so you will see friends and acquaintances on dating sites. The plus side is that it's similar to seeing them in a brothel or at an Arby's. The mutual mortification will keep your secret safe forever. I decided that if a person's profile or message didn't make me laugh, he wasn't in consideration. That tactic got me a date with Taken Guy, another handsome, bearded 40-something who worked at Dark Horse Comics and let me know immediately after our date that he'd just started seeing someone else exclusively. There was also Crying on the Inside Guy, a stand-up comic who teared up when talking about his ex-girlfriend. And then, in late October, my favorite suitor to date, Delayed Text Response Guy. First date number 25, late October. Delayed Text Response Guy. He was dorkily funny, darkly handsome, and bald in that Stanley Tucci-esque sense where it just fits and you can't imagine him any other way. He was an architect who spent a lot of time on construction sites, and his t-shirts always had what my friend Mimi used to call the cool hang. That's where the shirt looks like it's been washed 1,000 times, so it billows slightly at the bottom from stretch and wear. I've always had a strange affinity for guys who could achieve the cool hang, but maybe that's because I could never pull off a t-shirt. I always look like a roadie for a metal band. Footnote: there's nothing wrong with being a roadie for a metal band, I just am not one. On our first date, aside from the fact that I almost spilled my entire girly cocktail when I stood up to greet him, we seemed to have fantastic chemistry. There were no cringe-filled conversational lags, neither of us talked more than the other, and we laughed easily at each other's borderline TMI personal stories. His only flaw, I noticed in the first week, was that he never took less than 2 hours to respond to a text, and would sometimes take a couple of days. His replies always seemed interested and engaged, so I tried not to think about it. Also, the fact that he was funny, even just a little bit, made me very hopeful. More hopeful than I'd been in a while, actually. Since I had started this dating binge months earlier, I'd found that humor was the rarest trait to come across. Out of the hundreds of profiles I read, probably 7 made me laugh. And one of those 7 was cribbed directly from a Best of Craigslist post from 5 years prior. Footnote: that guy was a real charmer. It took him only 3 texts to send me a dick pic. Once I discovered what he'd done, plagiarized Craigslist, and called him on it, he desperately tried to prove he wasn't a bad guy by sending me a picture of his 4-year-old daughter, which only added to the creep factor since it came right after the dick pic. I told him the act of procreating did not automatically make one a good person. I love technology, but sometimes I miss the ability to slam down a phone receiver on someone who desperately deserves it. I started thinking that since funny is at the top of virtually every straight woman's must-have list, Portland had simply run out of funny men, and we would have to start importing them from Canada. So after Delayed Text Response Guy made me laugh on our first date, I was thrilled when he asked me on a second. We went to a bar in Southeast Portland where we sat at a long picnic table on the back patio, surrounded by Edison bulb string lights and tatted-up millennials who made us feel old simply by existing and being of drinking age. "They all look like my daughter," he said. "That's not helping," I said. We swapped a lot of stories that night. He even told me about when he'd lost his virginity. "Her parents were out of town, so we had the whole house to ourselves for a weekend," he said. "That's amazing," I said. "You were so lucky." "Well, yeah," he said. "It felt that way, but then she lost a tampon in her body somewhere, and it started to feel more nightmarish than idyllic." "Somewhere?" I asked. "Well, I knew where it was," he said. I just didn't want to think about it." "Did you go spelunking for it?" I asked. "I did," he said. "The weekend turned out to be more instructive in a different way than I'd hoped." "You probably never thought it was possible to see too much vagina." "Absolutely," he said. Turned out it was. Even after that non-sexy sex talk, I decided to go home with him that night. It was our second date. Here's why that might have been a mistake. There is an unspoken agreement among the majority of daters, and that's that the third date is the sex date. I have no idea how it happened. I must have missed the summit where the decision was made. But it's a thing now.